My father died on a Tuesday in October. He was 71 years old. He had been a quietly stubborn man his whole life, the kind who fixed things himself rather than call anyone, who kept his opinions close, who said "I love you" by showing up. By Thursday, my stepmother Vivienne had already called the estate attorney. She sat across from me in that conference room like she had already won. Like everything my father built over 71 years was just a transaction she had been waiting patiently to collect. Then the attorney reached back into his briefcase and said there was a second document, and the expression on Vivienne's face told me she had not known it existed. My father, Robert, was an architect for 35 years. He designed school buildings, the kind where you can tell the person who designed them actually thought about children moving through space. He retired at 68 and spent his last years drawing houses he gave away to friends and family. He drew my house and never charged me. When my mother died 8 years ago, I watched him grieve steadily, without drama, with his hands busy. I thought it would take him years before he was ready to be close to someone again. It took 14 months. Vivienne Hartley was 54 when she met my father at a community garden event in Decatur. She was charming the way some people are charming, purposefully, leaving you no room to notice what was underneath. She laughed at everything my father said. She showed up to his house with meals during his physical therapy recovery. I tried to be fair. I told myself I was just protective. Then I watched her, over 18 months, slowly take every photograph of my mother off the walls of his house and replace them with mirrors. They married 2 years after meeting. I was at the wedding. I smiled in the photographs. That is what you do when you love your parent and they are happy, even when something in you cannot fully settle. Vivienne moved into my father's house, the house he had designed and built himself in 1991. 6 weeks after the wedding, she had my mother's garden removed. She said it was overgrown. My father told me she had a point. That was the first time I heard him say something I did not recognize as him. My father's health declined faster than expected. He was diagnosed with a cardiac condition the winter after the wedding. Vivienne managed everything: his appointments, his medications, his visitors. When I called, she often answered his phone. When I visited, she was always in the room. In his last 6 months, every time I mentioned finances, he would get a look on his face I had never seen before. Tired, careful, like he was choosing his words around someone listening. He always had been. I just hadn't understood who. 3 days before my father died, I got a call from his original estate attorney, Walter Gaines, who had handled my father's affairs for over a decade. He told me my father had recently signed a new will and that I should be aware. He could not say more. I sat with that call for a long time. I thought about my father's face the last time I visited, the way he had held my hand longer than usual when I stood to leave, the way he had said quietly, "Diana, you know who I am." I had thought he was being sentimental. I understood later he was leaving me something to hold on to. My father died on a Tuesday. I was with him. Vivienne was in the hallway on her phone. By Thursday, she had contacted a different attorney and had the locks on my father's house rekeyed. I found this out when I arrived to collect personal items, and my key did not work. She answered the door in a silk robe and told me the estate was in process. I stood on the porch of the house my father built and did not say a single word. The formal reading was scheduled for the following Monday. I came with my cousin Marcus and said nothing about Walter Gaines. Vivienne arrived with her sister and a friend as witness. She wore a cream blazer. She crossed her legs and looked at me across the conference table with the expression of someone who believed they had already finished a race. The new will, executed 3 days before my father's death, left the house, his savings, his pension accounts, and all personal property to Vivienne. I was named for a single item, his drafting table. Vivienne's attorney finished reading. Vivienne kept her face arranged in something that was supposed to look like dignified grief. The attorney was already stacking papers when he paused. He reached back into his briefcase and removed a second sealed envelope. He set it on the table. He said, "There is a second document, also executed by Robert Reeves, registered with my office separately, and dated 4 days before the amended will. It is to be opened and read in the presence of both parties." Vivienne's hands went very still. The second document was a handwritten letter, witnessed and notarized by Walter Gaines at my father's request, without Vivienne's knowledge. My father had asked Walter to keep it sealed, and produce it at the formal reading regardless of what any subsequent will stated. In it, my father described the 18 months since his diagnosis. He wrote that he had felt afraid, that he had signed documents he was not certain he fully understood, that he had been told more than once that if he did not update his affairs in a certain way, his care in his final months could not be guaranteed. He did not use the word coercion. He did not need to. He wrote, "I want my daughter Diana to have what I built. I always did. I need someone to know that this was not freely given." My hands were shaking by the time Walter read the last line. Vivienne's attorney asked for a recess. Through the glass partition, I could see her posture change, the careful dignity collapsing into something urgent. When she came back, she said my father had been confused in his last months, that his judgment had been impaired. Walter Gaines looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "Mr. Reeves passed 2 cognitive evaluations in the 30 days before he wrote that letter. I have the documentation. He was legally competent. The letter contains specific, accurate financial details your own filing has corroborated. I would be cautious about the word confused." Vivienne did not respond. Her attorney closed his notepad. The amended will was contested and invalidated. It took 4 months and 2 court appearances. The court found sufficient evidence of undue influence. The house, his savings, his pension, all reinstated to his original estate plan. The drafting table was already in my living room. I had moved it the day after the reading, using the key Walter Gaines had kept at my father's request. The hardest part to sit with was not Vivienne, it was my father. Not anger at him, I want to be clear about that. He had been managed and isolated by someone who understood that quiet pressure on a tired, ill man is its own kind of force. What I sat with was whether I had visited enough, whether I had asked the right questions. Grief will turn every memory into a place where you could have stood differently. I have learned to notice when I am doing that and set it down. I moved into my father's house 8 months after his death. I repainted the living room, the terracotta my mother had chosen in 1993. I planted a garden in the backyard, black-eyed Susans along the south fence, hostas by the back steps, a hydrangea by the corner that will take 3 years to fill in properly. My father's drafting table sits near the window in his old study. His pencils are still in the mug where he left them. My father left me a drafting table and a letter. The letter was the more important thing, not because of what it did in court, but because it told me that in his last months, in the worst of it, he was still thinking clearly enough to protect me, that the man I knew, the one who drove 3 hours to fix a leaking pipe in my first apartment on a Sunday night, the one who drew my house from memory as a gift, that man was still in there. He just needed a different room and a different kind of door. I am glad he found one. I am glad I was on the other side of it.